Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Ringside Ramblers podcast. As always, I'm your host, Alex, and I'm joined this week by the most revered of Ringside Ramblers, Rohit and Alfonso. Gentlemen, how are you both today? And are you ready to ramble?
Always ready to ramble, and I'm doing good. How's everyone else doing?
All good, all happy, all ready, all wanting more wrestling in my life.
That's what we like to hear. Let's go.
Let's go. So, for this week's topic, it's been mentioned a couple of times over the last year or so in the WWE. In regards to John Cena, as Michael Cole has often referenced him as the GOAT of wrestling, meaning greatest of all time, of course. So, got us thinking, who actually is the GOAT of wrestling? So, Rohi, Alfonso, and myself are going to pick one person each who we think is the GOAT. We're going to discuss our reasons why. This is a tricky topic because it's kind of subjective.
Yeah.
It is opinion based, but obviously you can't just be like, Just Incredible is the GOAT of wrestling. Like, I'm sorry, you can't make a legit argument for Just Incredible to be the GOAT of wrestling. So it is subjective, but there are so many amazing wrestlers, over the years. So we'll have a crack and picking our own GOAT or who we think is the GOAT. And let's see what names we come up with. So we will start with you, Alfonso. In your opinion, and I want backup arguments and points here from you. I don't want just, this guy's the GOAT for no reason. Okay?
Be ready for it. Be ready for it. I
I'm
did my homework.
good. Alfonso, who, in your opinion, is the GOAT of wrestling?
Oh, in my opinion, like for me, it has to be John Cena.
Ah,
And
so going with
and
what Michael Cole says.
yes, and it's very easily to make arguments for him. I have very different categories. First, I have championship and achievements. He's a 16-time world champion, tied with Ric Flair. Five-time United States champion, and he had that amazing open challenge run that we all love. He's a four-time tag team champion, two times Royal Rumble winner, one-time Money in the Bank winner. Uh, Also, he has been doing this for 20 years on active competition. Right now, he's in the last bit of his career, but since 2002, like Cena has been one of the greatest of them all, and it for me is one of the greatest of them all. He has been in five WrestleMania main event matches, and as you know, he has been working every year that he has worked full time. He works a lot of house shows, a lot of shows, a lot of pay per views. Also, you have this crossover appeal that many goats they ask for it. So he's now very famous in Hollywood with Blockers, Bumblebee, the Fast and the Furious franchise, even Peacemaker, and many more. Even appearing in the last Deadpool and Wolverine. Sorry for spoilers. Uh, he's even in the show, the cooking show called The Bear. Also, if we talk about good people, because for me the goat also has to be a good role model. So no racist bastards, and no people that has been like very idiots in their life. So
Hulk Hogan.
John Cena has granted over 650 wishes through Make a Wish Foundation. So for me, that's amazing. Like as a human being. Also, if we talk about in-ring ability, I know he's not the best one, but he has had like many great matches with Kurt Angle, Chris Jericho, and even Brock Lesnar and Big Show. So if we talk about match quality, and we really talk about match quality, you have to remember one match for for one person to be your goat. And for me, it's 2011, Money in the Bank with CM Punk. It's also Shawn Michaels on Raw in 2007, or even
Amazing.
AJ Styles at Royal Rumble 2017. So those
Yeah.
three matches
Mhm.
are enough to talk him about one of the greatest of all time. Then if you go to Mike Skills, and character work. He has never had the best character ever, but tokenomics was huge. The ruthless aggression was something that he created with his way of promo. And we remember the exchanges with The Rock leading up to WrestleMania 28 and 29. They were great. And if we talk about like character evolution, or we talk really about how he transformed himself from Doctor of Tokenomics to the never give up Cena, is amazing to see. And then if we talk about cultural impact and legacy, and you talk about memes and all those stuff, you can talk about the never give up slogan, or the you can see me taunt, that is a meme. And if you say you can see me to somebody, they're going to tell you that's John Cena because he's bigger than wrestling.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about merchandise sales. We can talk about the influence in future generations. If you talk Cena to the new generations, a lot of them talk like, I wish I can be like Cena. Even though he's a polarizing figure, because a lot of people yelled, let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Let's go Cena, Cena sucks. That was great. Like, if you go to One Night Stand and you grab Cena against RVD in that match is amazing because of how people hate Cena.
Yeah.
A reaction is better than no reaction, even if it's
Hmm.
negative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we can go even further to talk about how he's the best company man. The guy even learned Chinese just to help WWE expand their market. So he's a global wrestling ambassador. If you talk about somebody who doesn't like wrestling, about John Cena, they're going to know about wrestling because of John Cena. So those are my arguments for John Cena being the GOAT.
Uh, Rohit, I don't think we've really got much chance of beating that. So should we just end it here? John Cena's the goat, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a nice episode. So yeah, why not?
Um, Alfonso, you make some fantastic arguments there.
Yeah.
When you put it the way you've just put it, it's hard to argue. But I think the obvious thing with Cena is his success, isn't it? His
Yeah.
general success. 16 world championships. No one has any more. WrestleMania main events. His longevity in the main event. It's just everything, isn't it? His star power, his drawing power, sales.
Yeah.
You covered it all, really. I think arguments against for Cena, I would say his bland character work.
I said that because I think that's an argument against. I think that both you have two great arguments against him. Is the character work that made bad creative decisions, like against the Nexus,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you also have uh, the in-ring quality. That for a long time, a lot of people yell at him that Cena can't wrestle, but then he proved that he can wrestle with an amazing matches with Cesaro and other guys, because the longevity asked for him to have like a this less
yeah.
flashy
Yeah.
moveset.
I don't think you can argue against his
Mhm.
ring work. While it's not up there with Daniel Bryan and Kurt Angle, it's still really good because he had some really
Yeah.
good matches, even like all the way throughout his career. So I think that whole Cena can't wrestle was a load of bollocks, really, because he obviously could.
Hmm.
I would have
Thinking.
loved a
Yeah.
heel run, maybe like
Yeah. I was
maybe
gonna
around
say
the
missed
time he was
potential.
feuding with The Rock. Maybe if he turned
Hmm.
full heel.
Yeah, I think that's what another thing I was thinking. Like, it sounds crazy to think about, but there is that little bit of missed potential there where we never seen any heel John Cena like
Yeah.
act, which that could have elevated him even higher potentially.
I mean, look what it did for Hogan. Hogan was kind of,
Yeah.
falling off the radar, and then he turned heel and
Hmm.
extended his career by another 5-10 years.
Roman,
But him, but
unfortunately.
him
Roman,
not,
yeah,
Hmm.
but him not being a heel created that amazing Bray Wyatt match, Firefly Funhouse. And for me, that's also one of my greatest matches that I love to watch and see, because I love Bray Wyatt, but you cannot have that Bray Wyatt match without John Cena being the babyface all the time.
No,
yeah.
I understand that for sure. Yeah,
I mean, he has to be in the conversation for GOAT for me, for sure.
100%, and
Everything
especially
he's
in the WWE, but even as a larger scale, 100% he has to be considered.
and yeah, he is larger than wrestling because people know him. You know, so many people know him
Yeah,
outside of wrestling. He is a megastar. So yeah,
yeah.
well done, Alfonso. Compelling arguments there for John Cena. Um, I'll go next.
Okay.
So I didn't mention at the start, like, criteria for GOAT. I think it's pretty obvious. It's, championships, accomplishments, like Alfonso said, WrestleMania main events,
Yeah.
Royal Rumble wins, world championships outside of the WWE for, TNA, AEW, New
Everything
Japan,
really.
wherever.
Yeah.
Drawing power, merch sales, longevity, all of those kind of things are the criteria, really. But
Yeah.
my GOAT in wrestling, who I think is the greatest of all time, because he was the highest drawing superstar there has ever been in wrestling's biggest boom period there has ever been, and it's Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Stone Cold Steve Austin, as the Americans would try to. I can't do American accent. I apologize.
I was about to break a glass just for you right now because I think that's a great shout.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, longevity goes against Steve Austin because if you talk about him at the top of the card, you're probably only talking about 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, unfortunate circumstances, I would definitely say.
Yeah, neck injuries and things like that, and knee injuries. But like, has anybody had a better 5 or 6 years than Steve Austin? You talk about like the best character of all time, arguably one of the best characters of all time. This anti-hero babyface that rebels against the system. He was the first guy that did it. He was the best guy that did it. That sort of character. His success in that brief period, I think he was WWE champion like 5 or 6 times. He main evented WrestleMania 3 times in that period. And it's just the drawing power is the main thing for me.
Yeah.
He drew every big rating that WWE got in the Attitude Era. I mean, it was mainly him. Obviously, he did have helpers: The Rock, Triple H, Mick Foley.
Mankind.
Yeah. But Austin was and Vince McMahon, I suppose you'd have to say as well. But Austin was the main one. His character, his feud with McMahon. If it wasn't for him and for that feud and for his character, for his drawing power, we may not have a WWE right now. WCW may have won the war. We don't know. I just think he is the most popular superstar of all time. I think that's like, it's quite a contentious thing to say because you had Bruno Sammartino in the 70s and Hulk Hogan as well, who was extremely popular in the 80s. But I don't think anybody was more over than Steve Austin. He probably doesn't have the things that John Cena does in terms of like the longevity, the company guy. I don't believe Austin's ever known for granting make-a-wishes and all those kinds of things. I don't think anything ridiculously bad has ever been said about Austin backstage. He always seemed pretty easy to work with.
I mean, to be fair to Austin, I don't know if Make-A-Wish was around then, or at least when connected with WWE as much.
Or the
for me,
equivalent sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's the thing, Alex, that you have the popularity. And it's very hard to talk about popularity with wrestlers because who was more popular was Bruno Sammartino because he sold out Madison Square Garden every fucking day.
Yeah.
Or is John Cena that has been on the top for 20 years.
Yeah.
Or is Steve Austin when wrestling was the most hot. You know?
That's what swings it for me. It's the biggest boom period in wrestling. It's it's the era that got so many more eyes on the product. Like people that wouldn't usually watch wrestling would watch it because wrestling became cool in the Attitude Era, and the lead person in the whole thing was Stone Cold Steve Austin. he's the biggest draw of all time for me, and I think that is something that just takes him over the top in terms of the greatest of all time. Excuse me. Character, drawing power, championships, his feuds as well, like with McMahon and The Rock. And I don't think there's ever been anyone else like him. So for me, the GOAT is Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Nice.
I mean, what would be your
Good pick.
arguments against Steve Austin? Would it be the longevity?
I think longevity in like quotation mark, because I feel like the boom period where everyone knows Steve Austin was somewhat short, but before that he's had a pretty good career all the way through, and he's always been a good ring worker, always been a good like guy to have on your roster. Obviously, he was never like the top guy previously before Austin 316, but
Yeah,
I think like yeah, that could be a little bit of a hit. And in terms of obviously, as Alfonso mentioned, popularity is a bit hard to quantify with the eras because not like during the Attitude Era, it was about TV ratings and pay-per-view sale, whereas now people still look at TV rating. Is it as important because social media is so much bigger now, the internet's so much bigger now? Is more social engagement maybe is the right metric to look at? But even then, you can't just solely look at that. And then same with back then with Bruno Sammartino, it was obviously attendance in the venue, was ticket sales.
yeah.
So it's like hard to quantify between the eras, but there's obviously no doubt he was popular, but that could play a factor against him. And in terms of obviously like comparing to Cena, like he doesn't have as many championships, so maybe that could also be a factor. But I think Steve
But
Austin is a
that's
great pick.
against the
Great pick.
longevity. That's
Yeah.
that's another argument, and it's also like how healthy was Steve
Yeah.
Austin?
Yeah.
Oh my
You
god,
know,
the neck injuries.
Yeah. Exactly.
Obviously, he got dropped on his head at SummerSlam 1997 by Owen Hart in a
Yeah.
tragic sort of accident that happened with a
that's
botched
yeah,
tombstone.
and that's not his fault, but
Exactly.
No,
you have to take that on account because
Yeah.
if you think about John Cena, you think about this guy that when he got injured, he went away and he always came back earlier.
yeah,
Like he got these nasty injuries, like when Seth Rollins broke his nose, he still finishes the matches, and he never dropped the ball. For WWE, he was
yeah.
always the company man, and for me, that's bigger than being the hottest guy in the best period ever. Because for Steve Austin to work, you needed to have a lot of things to be going on. John Cena was the GOAT during the worst time for WWE.
But then that argument you could say, well, was John
Oh
Cena
yeah,
part of the
yeah.
reason why it was the
Yeah.
worst time of WWE? Because Cena was on top.
You could also make the argument that Cena was in an era with better medical attention and nutritionists that allowed him to come back earlier and deal with these injuries. Whereas back then, if you had like a
You're right.
little
You're right.
shoulder injury, man up, have some alcohol, you'd be fine tomorrow morning.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think
One,
I think I think it's very easy to when people ask all the time because they're Americans and they go, "Who's in your Mount Rushmore? Who's your top four
yeah,
wrestlers of all time?"
Yeah.
You can put there John Cena and and Steve Austin easily.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
yeah.
like those
What?
two can easily go there. I think we need to change it because I know you guys are from the UK. So I'm proposing a new term. So instead of going who's in your Mount Rushmore of WWE or wrestling, you go who's part of your Beatles of wrestling. There are
Ooh.
also four, so you can put them there.
Hey, that's a great comparison for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For sure.
One final thing on Austin before we go to Euro Heat.
No
I
problem.
just want to say, go back anyone and watch his Backlash 2000 return, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about in terms of popularity, because that is one of the, if not the loudest pop in wrestling history. And Austin also drew the highest rated segment in TV history. I think it was a championship match with The Undertaker that drew like a 10 rating on the Nielsen scale. I think only one thing bested it, and that was like a Hogan Andre Saturday night's main event special back in the 80s. But yeah, that's the crux of my argument: popularity and drawing power. So yeah, Steve Austin for me. So
Fair
And
enough. Good
okay,
pick.
I'm giving you also another argument for you because you haven't said is the most famous wrestling T-shirt ever is from Steve Austin.
Austin
Is the
316.
316? Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, spot on, Alfonso.
Yeah.
So Rohit, we'll come to you for what you think is the greatest of all time. Obviously, you broaden your horizons with your viewing in terms of you watch a lot of Japan
Yep.
and other promotions. So maybe your opinion is a little bit different.
Hmm.
So go ahead, Rohit. Who do you think is the GOAT of wrestling?
There's so many names I could have tried to pick, but I think in this case, I think the one that fits the best, and I do think he's up there in the conversation, it's AJ Styles. I'm going with AJ Styles. Again, I think
Interesting.
yeah, I think he's been all over the world. He's done so much in wrestling. Like you can say, if you look at his resume, he was part of WCW. Yes, developmental, but he was part of WCW. Then obviously he helped put TNA and NWA on the map. Like when they were in the early years, or well, with NWA struggling years. Then also did the same with Ring of Honor. And then later on, as he became known as Mr. TNA, the TNA guys, there was always comparison made between him and Shawn Michaels. What if he fought Randy Orton, since everyone's saying like in ring both of them were naturals, right? What if we had that match, which obviously we would see it later on in his career. But yeah, he's won championship wherever he's gone. NWA World Champion, TNA World Champion, the first ever X Division Champion, if I remember correctly. He's been there, done it all in
New,
TNA. Yeah,
New Japan World Champion,
yeah, went to New Japan.
WWE
Became IWGP
WWE
World Champion.
Champion for over a year.
Exactly, yeah, and in WWE as well. Like he's been used well. He's come in, debuted at the Royal Rumble to a pretty good pop, and yeah, ever since he
Amazing
got
pop.
exactly, which you didn't expect to be that bad. Yeah, they timed it well with like where the Rumble was held and everything else. Like kind of like people in the know were in the know, and generally at like major shows like the Rumble or WrestleMania, a lot of hardcore fans are there as well that are more aware of outside of WWE. So that helped, which was great to see. And ever since he's been there, he's been one of the more consistent performers. He's been a company guy everywhere he's been. Like, he's always been, like, for the boys, for the company, like in TNA and New Japan, and obviously in WWE. Whatever is asked for him, he usually does it, and does it well, and knocks it out of the park. He's usually a safe worker as well. Like, yeah, there's some controversy with his styles clash, but I feel like that's just a move where people, like, it's the opposite of what they're trained to do. You're meant to tuck your chin for
Tuck.
everything, but with the
Yeah.
style class, you do the opposite. So it's unfortunate that has happened. But even then, I think there's no one that like blames AJ or like has any ill will to him. And if you see his family, how like he's a family guy and he's very like a nice person, like Alfonso said, we've seen a nice person. And yeah, and I feel like in ring, longevity wise, as well as different styles, and even till this day, like some of the recent matches has been incredible, and you can work with almost anybody in any size. And just like the Undertaker said, he wanted that match with AJ for a reason, because everyone's saying how good he is. He saw how good he is. And he's like the modern day Shawn Michaels equivalent, which is huge praise from someone like Undertaker to say. I think,
Yeah, for sure. And if you go also with longevity and you talk about backlash in France,
yeah.
you only can say il est vraiment phénoménal. And I think that reaction from the public that time was amazing. Like you go and see that camera bouncing on the ring for AJ Styles,
Yeah.
and that's it. That's everything you need to know. And one of the things that I like about your pick, Rohit, is
Hmm.
that you have this guy that has been to everywhere.
Yeah, all the
Like,
modern companies,
like,
yeah, pretty much.
like he can even go to AEW right now, and I'm pretty sure he's going to have an amazing match if
Yeah.
he wants to.
And
You
you could
know?
make an argument because of like the wrestlers that he's come up with, some of them he's trained with or to help mentor, right, are in AEW or helped influence in creating AEW. So you could say even his influence is felt in AEW. So you could even make
for
that
sure.
argument as well. And I feel like with AJ, it's just like, what hasn't he done? Obviously, apart from being in AEW, but he's done so much and he's so loved. And speaking of like us Brits, Alex, like from the modern, I would say like probably like 2004-ish era of like British independence scene onward, one of the first like time I heard that, oh, there's British independence scene going on, was an AJ Styles match. And like he's had some matches in the British
Yeah,
independence scene even later in his years when he was in during his New Japan Pro Wrestling days. He was Rev Pro champion as well, and he was appearing in the UK as well, and helped grow that scene and cultivated that a little bit more as well, which is just great to see. So, and the British scene after like NXT UK like had a bit of a downtrend, but now it's starting to bounce back. And like obviously AJ helped that trend, and then obviously like Rev Pro is doing well and so on. So I feel like what AJ's done to influence like people in different continents, different countries, and like the fact that people know him despite language barriers, despite cultural differences, and they've heard of him, and his work has translated so well. Yeah, I think
yeah,
there's an argument he's a goat, and arguably part of the Bullet Club, one of the greatest faction of all time. Love him or hate him, maybe you don't like him so much now, but they are one of the most influential, especially over the last decade. So I think
yeah.
that figures too.
AJ is one of my personal favourites of all time. I think when you talk about in-ring
Yep.
quality of match, in-ring ability, he is 100% up there as one of the goats. He, like you said, Ro, he could have an amazing match with a broomstick. He really has got this generational talent in the ring that just doesn't, and comes along once a generation. Shawn
Yeah.
Michaels was one, AJ Styles is another.
For me, the biggest argument with AJ Styles is that when you talk about your goats, you talk about your John Cena's, your Steve Austin's, your
Yeah.
whatever. Almost every time, people say, "I wish my favorite wrestler wrestles AJ Styles."
Yeah,
Like, you wrestle AJ Styles or Shawn Michaels, to be honest, or Kurt Angle. But
yeah,
normally, you don't hear people saying, "Oh yes, I wish we got that match against John Cena or that match against Steve Austin." You always get those guys that are like in the next level, like of wrestling capacity. And AJ Styles is one of the greatest
Yeah.
at wrestling, like at the pro wrestling, like essence.
Yeah.
And I think
that's
that's the
where
great
he
stuff.
that's where he definitely is ahead of Steve Austin and John Cena in terms of the in-ring quality of his match, his psychology, his storytelling, his selling,
Yeah.
his variety of moves. I could go like on and on about how good AJ is in the ring. So in terms of against AJ for GOAT, so I mean, immediately you talk about the GOAT wrestling, and someone says AJ Styles, you think, okay, AJ's amazing, but no, like you can't
Yeah.
consider him for the GOAT because I guess it's the star power.
Yeah.
He's not been a star in in on the biggest stage in front of the biggest audiences, and not everybody knows AJ Styles. And although he's
Yeah.
been world champion in Japan, WWE, TNA, which is amazing, he's just not widely known. Like the drawing
Yeah.
power, the star power, just isn't quite there for AJ, as opposed to even someone like Ultimate Warrior, who's like you know
Yeah.
considerably worse at pretty much everything to do with wrestling than AJ Styles, but more people know someone like the Ultimate Warrior
Yeah.
because of his star quality. So, I mean, that is for me. That's one big drawback against AJ
Of
Styles.
course. Yeah. And that's why I put AJ Styles up there, because I was like, if I pick someone else as well, like that would be a even more of an argument point. And I understand, like I said, WWE is the biggest out there. There's no disputing that, and that's where majority of the people know the wrestlers and wrestling fans come from. So of course they have like the biggest platform for like everything, social media, connection to Hollywood, advertisements and everything like that. So it makes sense for other wrestlers to be ahead of him in that popularity, kind of like in that star power factor, really. But yeah, I can concede that, but I think if you it again because it's subjective, I feel like the argument for AJ because he is so great in the ring, he's such a great guy, and he's been all over the world. He has proved himself everywhere he's gone. Whereas other guys, you'd be like, John Cena has been in the comfort of WWE forever. Not saying he couldn't do it anywhere else, but what if? At least with Stone Cold, you've seen him doing WCW, you've seen him doing on the independents, and then obviously he conquered WWE. So you have that path. But with John Cena, he just came through developmental straight into WWE. So for example, like some people may not factor that in, some people will. So I guess it depends on the criteria. But for me, I think AJ does do enough things right to be considered at least in the conversation.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is subjective. It is your there's a general criteria, isn't there? But it is your personal opinion, and like great points about he's done it everywhere. You know, world champion in all over the world. So I mean, it's definitely like a left. I wouldn't say it's like a major left field pick, but it's definitely one that's a little bit off the radar for sure. But a great pick. Like AJ is, you know, pardon the pun, he is phenomenal. So yeah, exactly. So there you go. Those are the three we pick. Now, guys, what I'm going to do because there are so many, and you know a whole list of names of potential goats in wrestling, and you know someone will get upset if we don't mention them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to reel off a list of names. I want a quick sort of yes or no comment. Can they be considered for GOAT status? You know, we're almost talking like, would you put them in the top 2 or 3 of all time here? So
I think we have to go top 4 because that's the
top.
Just anything. Are they in the GOAT side where you can consider, or are they on the they are good but not GOAT status? I think that's
but
the best.
I think okay, let's go. Let's do
all right. I'll reel them off. Okay, so Bruno Sammartino.
Yes, GOAT. I would put on the GOAT side, yeah.
Has to be. Hulk Hogan.
Tricky. I think based on recent stuff, as a human being, I cannot put him on the GOAT side.
I cannot put him in the GOAT. Sorry.
I'm with you guys in terms of wrestling. Yes, but yeah, I can't do it.
I can't do no more. No.
No, The Undertaker.
Yes, GOAT.
Yeah, 100%. The Rock.
GOAT.
Yeah. GOAT.
Yeah. Kurt Angle.
GOAT. I would
GOAT for sure. And he's the GOAT. He's really close to GOATest of the GOATs.
And if we're talking about Perk Angle, he's definitely the
Bret Hart.
GOAT.
Yeah. Shawn Michaels.
GOAT,
yeah. For sure.
Has to be,
yeah.
Ric Flair.
Ooh.
No GOAT.
For me,
he's not. For me, he's not.
He is GOAT for me. He's GOAT for me.
For me, it has to be GOAT just because of like how much influence he has on like the rapping scene and other areas.
Yeah, but like when you really think about Ric Flair, he took a lot of things from a lot of other wrestlers.
True.
He did. Took the Nature Boy thing from Buddy Rogers, yeah. But come on, like 80s feuds with Dusty, Ricky Steamboat, Sting, like
For me, the problem is that for me, if you go 80s, you go for other guys before Ric Flair.
Yeah. No,
I don't know, Alfonso.
I see where Alfonso's coming from. Yeah, for me, it's like Ric Flair has done just enough, like 60% enough for him to be in the GOAT, and then the 40% is like, maybe he shouldn't, but he's done just enough for me, I think, to be on the GOAT side.
I would resoundingly put him in the GOAT status for me personally.
Fair.
Triple H.
No GOAT.
No GOAT.
Yeah, I think no GOAT.
I think he's there.
He's close. He's close.
He's close, but he's a top 10, not or a top 20.
He's like really, really good, like a mega star, but he's not quite the GOAT. And I think that's partially because he had guys like Shawn Michaels around and other ones that were always seen as ahead of him. So
Austin was ahead of him. Rock was ahead of him. Yeah, not quite.
No.
Randy Orton.
Ooh, longevity wise, I think he has to be in the conversation for the GOAT.
Maybe I would say no for now, but in like when he's hung up his boots fully, he could very much be on the GOAT side. So
I
I think no for now. He's very
I
close though.
complete. I agree with you, Rohit. Not quite yet, but possibly in 5, 10 years.
Yeah, but very
For
Another.
me,
close.
for me, the only reason that I can put him in the GOAT without hesitation is the RKO, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
The
best finishing
RKO
move
now
ever.
is essential with wrestling.
It is
I still
the
call it
go
the
to
diamond
finishers.
cutter, man.
Okay, another Randy Savage.
Ooh, yeah.
It's gotta be. I think he was like the first kind of funky guy that could wrestle as well and had that mystique about him. I think I would put him in the GOAT. Yeah.
For
I
me,
would so
for
popular
me,
and
for me, he's the GOAT because if you think about like character, if you think about the
yeah,
pizzazz, if you
Yeah.
think about the entertainment part of the
Presentation.
wrestling,
Yeah.
he is there.
And he was in the
absolutely.
Spider-Man movie, the original.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, this is an older one. I don't know if you guys would know this name. Gorgeous George.
Ooh, I have heard of him, but
I have heard of him.
I don't
I
know
know
too
he
much
has been like
about him.
very.
Mm.
I know
First
he's the
real
reason, like he's
star.
the reason why Ric Flair
Yeah,
acted the way
Yeah.
Ric Flair acted. He's the reason because of the ropes and everything.
yeah. The
But
hair.
I think sometimes you need to understand who are legends, like people that influence the business, like
Yeah.
Ric Flair for me, and the goats. So
Hmm.
for me, he's also like just a legend.
He is.
Yeah.
He Gorgeous George is like the first sort of mega star character in wrestling in the 40s.
Yeah.
Similar, I think Luthez could get a similar sort of standing as him as well.
Yeah.
Right, a couple more. How about Chris Jericho?
Oh. I
I
know
hate
people
him.
are a lot
I hate
toxic
him,
on him at the
but he's
moment.
part of he has to be part of the conversation now. I
Mm.
think everything that he has done in his
Yeah.
whole career, like he needs to be part of the conversation now.
Yeah, I think he was one of the key like last catalysts for AEW existing when he jumped at the chance to wrestle Kenny Omega in New Japan. So I feel like that alone, plus whatever he's done already, and what he continues to do, love him or hate him, what he's doing right now, I think he has to be. I think he just makes it in, but he could
He,
obviously increase his value as the years goes down. So who knows?
he's he's done a hell of a lot in his
Yeah,
career, hasn't
and
he?
he's one of those
But
Despite
guys
yeah,
that reinvents
I
himself
but
so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
I
wait,
wish he'd stop reinventing himself now, though.
but wait, yeah, what Rohit is saying is very interesting because for me, a goat also needs to know when to quit. That's
Mm.
why I'm very happy that John Cena is quitting finally. I wish like Randy Orton stays like maybe for 2, 3 more years, but yeah, I think Chris Jericho value is decreasing very fastly.
You know, you might have just turned my head, Alfonso, for no goat there. Yeah. Um, Mitsuharu Misawa.
Ooh, I think in ring wise and what he done for like the whole business, he created his own company and everything. I think I would put him in the GOAT
He's
for
close,
sure.
isn't he? With
Hmm.
everything he's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, he has to be up there. Like if you get one Japan guy to be in your goat conversation, is not Misawa. That's the
Uh,
only thing.
what Antonio Inoki?
Yeah, for sure, the goat.
I think if you have to go one guy, it most likely would be between Inoki and Baba, and I think Inoki is probably more known, especially these days. I feel like just because of New
I think
Japan Pro
so.
Wrestling success more. So I feel like,
Yeah,
and then obviously what he did with the influence with the MMA world, his fight with Muhammad Ali, and then his political side as well, like what he did politics wise, like saving some Japanese hostages in like negotiations in Pakistan. I think it was in Pakistan or Afghanistan or something like that. And obviously him being bonkers and creating that super show in North Korea, I think it was as well. Like, So
Giant Bob is a good shout as well, Rohit, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So
Um,
if you had to pick one, we'd have to give it Inoki because he's like just a wrestling
yeah,
god over there. But
But that's the thing. Like if you go Japan, you go Inoki
yeah,
first,
I
yeah,
and
think you have
then
to.
you have to,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
yeah,
and then I don't know if you go Misawa because maybe I go Tanahashi, and
maybe
Tanahashi
Tanahashi.
hasn't and
Yeah,
Tanahashi hasn't
Hmm.
stopped.
Yeah,
So maybe
yeah,
there's a lot
Tanahashi
of
when he hangs the boots.
with Japan. There's a lot of guys to consider because it's like so many guys achieve like legendary status that people on like Reddit and online fans. I know online fans or whatever, but I do feel like this resonated a lot to me. If you want to make money and be a star, you go to WWE. Nothing wrong with that. If you want to be a legend, you go to Japan. And I've always resonated to me because I feel like in Japan you can get that zeitgeist, that legendary status. I'm not saying you can't make money there, but that's what I always feel like. I'm not saying you can't become a legend in WWE either. You can do that as well. It's just something I picked up and I felt like resonated quite well.
And if I can give you guys another one,
Yeah.
and is El Santo,
El
yeah,
Santo,
yeah.
yes.
Absolutely,
100%.
and
legendary.
Yeah.
and that's the thing. Like
Mexico
if
has
we're
a
really
lot of
thinking
legends as
about the
well.
goat,
Yeah.
if you go worldwide, because you know how Americans love to call them world champions, and they're only fighting in the U.S.
Yeah.
Uh, you can go. Who are the goats of whole world?
Mhm.
You get Inoki, you get John Cena, you get El Santo,
Mhm.
and you go three goats, like
Yeah.
three really good goats.
Yeah. And there's a lot of
That
names. You got Dr. Wagner Jr. as well. I feel like has to be up
El,
there. La
El
Parca.
Santo's
El
has to be the
Santo.
goat of
100%.
Mexican wrestling for me.
Oh yeah, 100%. One of
Yeah,
the it's got
Yeah,
Rey Mysterio is still up there doing his thing. He
yeah.
could be up
Ramus
there.
could be a shout. Yeah.
Yes.
Right, I'm going to throw one final name at you
Okay.
guys. James Ellsworth. No, no, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. Okay,
wait,
okay.
wait. I have some news for you. I met James Ellsworth, but I'm going to tell you about after the show.
Maybe
What
we'll save
about
that for another
Adreza the
podcast.
panda?
No, no, not James Ellsworth. The tribe, not him either. Roman Reigns.
No, yet.
Not yet. Oh, not yet.
I'm with you. Give it 10 years, maybe. He'll be up there in the conversation.
She might
Maybe.
not have 10 years if he goes to Hollywood.
He might not.
He might not. But again,
But
that
yeah, I
Hollywood could
think
help him to get that
I think
gold.
this is
So,
one of those. I think this is one of those episodes that can go and on and on and on and on,
Yeah,
yeah,
because
true.
yeah,
everybody has a goat.
Exactly.
But I
yeah.
think today was great because everybody has compelling arguments
Hmm.
for the goat, and I
Yeah.
hope people in the comments really put them like, "This is my goat," and
Yeah.
maybe for somebody, somewhere like in Canada, Edge is going to be their goat, or Bret
Yeah.
Hart is going to be their
Yeah.
goat.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's a great conversation, isn't it? It's been a great conversation with you two guys. Some great points, great arguments for various superstars, and it really is subjective, in my opinion. It's there's a lot of factors with when it
Yeah.
comes to the goat, but it is a little bit of a personal preference. Someone like you said, Alfonso in Mexico would say Al Santo, Japan, Inoki, and you could go on and on. So it's a great conversation. It's brilliant. So
For
we
sure.
will wrap it up there, guys. I think we've exhausted everybody we could possibly say, and we apologise to anyone if we've missed off their favourite who really think they should have been in the goat conversation. But I think we've done a pretty good job there,
Yeah.
guys. So
Just too many names, too many wrestlers.
too
And
many,
it's
too
such a
many.
broad topic, like it's hard to pick and decide on
It
anything. So
it really is. But there we got it down to our three, which were John Cena, Steve Austin, and AJ Styles. So yeah, like Alfonso said, let us know who you think is the GOAT. Don't forget to follow us at Ringside Ramblers on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe on YouTube. Alfonso and Rohit, thank you so much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure as always.
yep, pleasure as always.
And we will see everybody next time for another Ringside Ramblers podcast. Ciao, everybody.
Ciao.
Ciao.